Having me, Alicia.
Look, Richard, 1.983% voted for changes to the Rwandan constitution, paving way for President Paul Kagame to run for another term. Are we now witnessing a pattern where sitting presidents resort to referendums in order to stay in power, Richard?
Well, it appears that this has been going on for quite a while, as we've seen. The recent one was in Burundi, where President Nkurunziza earlier this year attempted to go for a third term. But however, this pattern has been going on since the 1990s, where it's about 24 presidents since the 1990s in sub-Saharan Africa who have initiated discussions so that they could remain in power. So it's something that has been seen before.
Look, Richard, but why is it difficult for others to relinquish power at the set time after their two terms? I mean, we've witnessed this in Mozambique, Tanzania, and recently Nigeria. But in Burundi and Rwanda, they resorted to referendums. And of course, the DR Congo is also attempting going through that route.
Yes, it seems that, like for presidents who tend to remain in power, who cannot relinquish power at the end of their terms and who would want to continue, they tend to either shift the constitutional definition of a full term without scraping the term limits altogether, or they either go through court rulings or parliamentary votes if they have a majority in parliament, or they go to the public referenda, which we have kind of seen recently.
But Robert, does that mean then, Richard, I mean, can we blame the president for holding on to power when their actual electorate have actually given them the mandate through such a vote?
Well, this creates a form of a dilemma as well. And in the case of, if we look at Burundi, for example, we can see that the people were totally against it, and there were protests which turned violent, etc. And another case would be in Burkina Faso as well. However, in Rwanda, we have seen that President Paul Kagame has gone through the legal routes. I mean, he has waited, he has taken it to the courts. And as yet, he has not pronounced whether he's going to go for a third term. So we're still waiting for that. So he put it to the people, and he's seemingly following the constitution of his country.
Look, Richard, just to dig your brain here, to pick your brain a little bit, what would happen if the AU were to actually set a prescribed term throughout the African continent? Do you think that would work? I mean, bearing in mind issues of sovereignty between the independent countries?
That's a very good point that you bring up, the issue of sovereignty. As we see, this has already been playing out in Burundi in terms of sending in troops. In terms of, let's go to your case scenario where you say that the AU really decides to impose a two-term limit. I would say they would need support from the majority of the government and the regional leaders. If we look at the East African Community Bloc, for example, it's only Kenya and Tanzania who have, in recent time, respected their term limits, where we've seen in Uganda where the term limits have been scrapped in 2005, and Burundi currently going through the crisis because of an extension of terms. And now we have President Kagame who have put a referendum right through. And I would say it would need the support of all people coming to the table for it to work. Without support, then I would say it would just be mere words on paper.
Richard, thank you so much for your time here on News Today, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Mr. Richard Chelin, the project coordinator at Good Governance Africa. We're going to take a quick ad break, and coming up in your sports news, New Zealand wraps up their 2-0 series victory over Sri Lanka after winning the final test in Hamilton by 5 wickets, and Pearl has those details.